everyone. Welcome to the Art Workshop. I'm Christopher Epling. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pike TV today. Really excited to bring a new episode of the Art Workshop to you. Just before we begin today's episode, I have a couple of things we'd like to put out there. We'd really love to have your request for any questions that you might have, let's say on art techniques, how to draw, any specific subject matters you want to look into more, you'd like to see us cover here on the show. Maybe it's a different type of medium. Anything that you have questions on, you can send those in to us. Just email those to me directly at eplingillustrations@gmail.com. Now, while you also have my email address, we'd like for you also to send in any examples of your artwork that you might have. If you want us to share your art here on the show, we'd love to. We have done it in the past. Had a large turnout here recently of all kinds of different submissions. So if you have your artwork that you'd like to submit to us so we could show here on the episode, we can send those in to me directly at eplingillustrations@gmail.com. We're going to be talking today a little bit about Halloween-themed type art projects. So this is going to be focusing in on specific themes related around Halloween. And we're really excited that in upcoming sketches, we're actually going to be having a focus on pumpkin carving. It is that time of year. Autumn is upon us. Fall is next door. So we'd like to look into pumpkin carving a little bit because, you know, even with carving and molding and shaping, all these things can be used as mediums and used in art a lot. So we want to cover these for you. Now, sketches is a little shorter than the art workshop. Runs about 15 minutes, but you can find those here on Pike TV. Let's say you missed that and you really want to check it out. You can find all past episodes by just going to YouTube and searching for Pike TV 99. So be sure and have no spaces in between that. So it's just Pike TV 99 on YouTube. There you find all kinds of playlists of all the great content that Pike TV brings you. And our region is really excited to have all this wonderful content. And I'm really excited and happy just to be a small part of it. Now on today's show, we're going to be focusing on Halloween-themed subject matter. And we cannot touch Halloween without talking about how really all the different types of elements of Halloween that you think of in terms of characters such as Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, really started with Universal Classic Monsters. Now the Universal Classic Monsters is a film franchise. It includes fictional monsters that featured in various horror, suspense, and science fiction movies in Universal Studios. It was released from the 1920s to the 1960s. Now, the studio began their long run of horror films with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, then The Phantom of the Opera, and then those went on, you know, with silent films with Lon Chaney, moving in then to Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Invisible Man, the Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and so on and so on. There's been so many different takes on these characters. As you can see, the original characters have been interpreted in different ways. This is a more formal type of a drawing, almost a painting here. I'm not sure if it's digital or acrylic or oil, but you can see this is more of a realistic interpretation with a little bit of a characterized version. But as you can see, there's been different takes on these characters. It's more of a cartoon type Frankenstein. These are all wonderful and well and done, but today we're going to be looking at this as well. But I remember growing up, those of you who are familiar with the Ben Cooper costumes. Now this is something that I wore as a kid. This is a plastic mask. Those of you old enough to know what these were, I can remember the Ben Cooper costumes. Costumes have changed a lot since back in the day, but you know, today we're going to be focusing on Frankenstein, and we're going to be focusing in on how to draw our interpretation of this character from these wonderful Universal Studios Classic Monster series. So our mediums for today, and when we talk about medium, what we're talking about is what we're using to draw with or paint with. So it can be acrylic, crayons, colored pencils, so on. We're going to be using, of course, pencil, which is graphite. We're going to be using watercolor and a little bit of ink. And we combine those together, we'll be able to create our Frankenstein. So those of you at home want to participate and follow along, grab some paper, pencil. If you have watercolor laying around, that's wonderful. An ink pen, though, will help a lot. So let's go ahead and get started in today's art workshop. So I have all my supplies already hand-dyed. So there's got these little aqua brushes, so I don't have to dip a lot in the water consistently here on the show. And then I also have, of course, ink pens at the ready. So when we actually need those later, we'll be able to use those. And then over here, you can see I have some watercolor cakes. These are all just assortment of colors and these are a travel kit, so they're easy to bring around with you on the go, and that's one of the reasons that we want to use those here on the show. You do not necessarily need these specific types of products to draw. Of course not. You just need a pencil, paper, and a pen. That would help a lot. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this is a mechanical pencil. Nothing special about it. So if you have a regular pencil at home, that's wonderful. And what I like to do is start out by going ahead and forming this shape. And I want you to make this shape on your paper as well. It's going to look like an egg, okay? So those of you who've ever drawn an egg before, or a shape of an egg, you can get this pretty well. Now, this is going to look a little light at first, and then as you know, if you watch the show, it's going to get darker as we move forward. We'll be filling this in a little bit more, making the shapes kind of pop out a little bit more easier to recognize, okay? So just going to draw this shape, kind of look like a guitar pick or an egg shape here. This is going to be our foundation, so everything that we have is going to be built on top of this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see my edges are a little loose, and that's okay. I do have an eraser in case that was to happen. But just kind of get this general shape down, and once you have this now, we can build outward from this. Now, the Frankenstein look, or how Frankenstein appears, has a very boxed chin. So this is the face of Frankenstein. So we can draw a line, very faint line, going right down the middle of our egg shape here, about there. You can barely see it on mine, and I want you not to press down very hard on yours either. Now, this is going to be the general kind of middle ground symmetric line of the face. Come on the side here of your egg shape, and you're going to draw two lines coming down on each side, and you're going to bring those in just below where you drew the egg tip of the egg, or the tip of the guitar pick, you could say. And this is going to form the chin, so we have that. Now, return back up to the top here, and let's work a little bit inside the face. This is going to just be the face of Frankenstein, a profile shot, and then maybe his shoulders a little bit as well. All right, on the edges of our little shape that we've created, we're going to draw his ear. Now this shape just comes out, then back in, and you can put each one of these on each side. And I'm coming out from my egg just a little bit on this side. As you can see, it's kind of a little more extended than the other. This shape only serves to kind of direct you on where to put these elements. You don't have to use this shape religiously in terms of following it line by line. They're just here to help guide you. Now come up from the ear, and let's connect to the egg now, so we can make this shape kind of fill out a little bit more up to the head. Now Frankenstein's head, of course, is very predominant, his forehead especially. And we're drawing the actual image that was used in Universal Studios to promote the film, which was the face of Frankenstein, shoulders up. He's kind of looking, the original makeup was pretty simple stuff, but it was amazing and kind of revolutionary at the time for film. The special effects. And notice I'm getting rid of the egg at the bottom, the egg tip here. I'm just kind of folding this out a little bit more, shaping it up, trying to get it where I want it. Erasers are a wonderful thing, aren't they? You can see now that this is more of a face now that we have instead of an egg. We still have this line going straight down. That's going to be needed soon, but before we get there, I want to work on the neck some. So come just below the two lines that you created coming down from the original shape first. We're going to return down here at the bottom, and I want you to make a line coming down on this side and down on the other side. This is going to form the neck of Frankenstein. And once you have these two general shapes, you can round this out at the bottom and pull it back up. So that now we have the full neck shape of Frankenstein, including the head and the face. On the side of his neck, of course, he has the two bolts that are used to bring electrical currents into the body, which reanimates the character in the movies. So we want to put those two bolts on the side of his neck. One's a little higher than the other. You have to watch for these kinds of things. So you can kind of take your time a little bit more and generally get the different elements sized up correctly. So once we have that, now let's pull a line coming down this way and a line coming down this way. Now we're not drawing this specifically at first. What we're going to do is just kind of make these shapes and then go back and fill in a little bit more detail later. Now I don't want to run out of time with you today, so we're going to go ahead and move kind of quickly through this. Again, you can watch the show again if you want to rewatch it on Pike TV's YouTube channel by going to YouTube, of course, and then searching for Pike TV 99. On each side, I'm going to draw a little bit of the hair. You can see some hair on the character. It comes up to the forehead and then out. Now what's happened here is the boxy shape of the Frankenstein's head. We didn't really get that with the roundness of the egg, so I'm going to take away these two edges on each side of his head now. And I'm going to form this a little bit better to resemble more of Frankenstein's box-shaped head. So this is really important. The character has a very predominant look. You can see a silhouette of this character, just all in black, no details, and you could tell almost immediately what character it is just by seeing the shape. And it's really interesting if you think about it, how these different images and symbols and things kind of get embedded into our culture. Before Frankenstein was found on film, not many people really knew it except outside the novel. So it's really interesting how that happens. Now at the top of the head, he does have these staple type things. So all these are just little block shapes coming down from the very top of his head. Now we're going to use this symmetric line. It's going to come into play now. And what I want you to do is come on each side, and you're going to draw this line coming up and across and down. Now notice where I placed this line. It's around the tips of the ears. We're not extending too far up this way. He does have a scar that comes down right here, so go ahead and put that. We don't really see much of the hair up here at the top. This is more of the, believe it or not, it's just a massive forehead, okay? This whole area. And once you have this line here, we can start working on the eyes. And the eyes are almost shut, and they're at a little bit of an angle on each side. So just draw this angle coming up. It's about I'd say a 30-degree angle, and draw it opposite on each side, coming in towards the middle of the face. Once you have that, drop down, and we're going to work on the nose. And the nose is just real simple. Just draw almost like a little parentheses here. Once you have the parentheses, you can come on each side of that and add the nostrils. And we don't see a whole lot of the actual detail of the bridge of the nose. We see shadow more than anything. And that's really what we're going to do later on with the watercolor, is bring out that shadow effect to show the different elements of the face a little more using watercolor. Now just by simply adding a couple lines on each side of the eyelid, we're going to be able to show that his eyes are shut, okay? Moving down, we need two lines extending off of the nose. Then the mouth, of course, is right here, so we want to put that and include that. The mouth is just this small, kind of like almost like a slit shape. It's going to be darkened in a little bit later on, so don't really focus too much on trying to get that completely perfect right now. We'll work with that with the watercolor. The chin is about here. We have this little shape here to show that there's some different elements here going on with texture of the face. And so down on each side we have more wrinkles coming down. You can keep adding to this as much as you want. You can really put some serious detail in this. We don't have a lot of time to do that on the show. So what we're going to do is try our best to capture the shadow of the face and the different elements of the face with our watercolor here shortly. And what I'm doing now is just drawing these kind of line-shaped kind of boundaries on where all of my watercolor is going to go later. I like to draw that out. So I'll draw these shapes. Like if shadow appears here, I'm going to draw this out a little more. The fold of the ears, start always with the little lobe that's in the interior of the ear, not the lobe here, but the lobe that's on the interior. Start there and then move outward always. That's my trick to getting an ear to look more like an ear. Now all of this, of course, will be shaded in. Across the bridge of the nose here will be shaded in. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move in with our watercolor and move in from there and start to add some more detail. This is all shadow here, so all we're going to be seeing is black. And then down the side of the character's chest is the jacket, and you can see the little fold of the jacket piece here. And that's really all we're going to be able to see from that. Now we have everything we need to start watercoloring. So I'm going to jump and bring some color in. I haven't pre-mixed anything yet. What I've basically done is just I've moistened all the cakes so that they are ready to go. And I'm going to start actually very lightly with a bluish tint. And I know you're probably wondering, why are you starting with blue? Blue actually will serve as our foundation tone color. And once we have that, we can actually build upon it. So I'm going to start with this blue. And you can see that Frankenstein isn't blue, of course. He's more of a green color. If you know the background of the story, Frankenstein, the actual character, was a reanimated corpse, as very dark as it sounds, and I guess it is to a certain degree. It's a reanimated corpse. So Frankenstein, his skin has deteriorated. I imagine, I'm just going off what the character looked like makeup-wise in the film, and there's a deterioration that has occurred, of course, since the character was reanimated and when he was last walking the earth as a human being. So there's a deterioration that has occurred. So we're going to try to get that by showing green and blue, and that's what we're doing now. We're starting to add that color lightly. I always say it's easier to add to something than to take away from it. So that's why I like to start very, very light with my color. When I'm watercoloring or with any medium, I'll start very lightly, and then I'll slowly build that up so that eventually we have a lot of shadow. So I'm working on the bridge of the nose now. You can see as I start to add more of this color, and I'm mixing a little bit of blue and a little bit of green here, you can see how this will start to come together more now as we start to add this color in. Don't color over top of the lobes, the eye lobes, those actually need to remain light. We have a light source that's coming in from the front of the face, so we want to be sure and capture that correctly. And how to do that is you want to leave space. You do not want to color in everything. You want to leave some areas that are white, and sometimes it's just easier to not even worry about putting any color at all than it is to go in there and start putting in a lot of color at first, because you want to capture the way it looks. Now we're going to continue adding and building up just a general color, and we're going to continue to add more and more as we go forward. I have a tendency to really take my time doing this, so I have to sort of condition myself working on the show here to kind of speed up a little bit, because otherwise I would work on this all evening if I was working on this as a commission, and we don't have all evening together. So let me try to speed up a little more. Now I'm really kind of pulling in some more color now. So now you're going to see those greens and those blues starting to come out more. And this is the neck, of course, and what I've done here is this whole area on the side of his neck on the right side is dark, very dark, so we won't see very much over here at all. And this sort of connects down to the shirt and the jacket. And you can see what I'm doing is just continuing to build up the surface. Now I will go back in later and add some much darker colors here. This will actually be very, very dark towards the end of our exercise. But for now, we're just going to leave it the way it is and return to it, okay? I'm working now on the side of the head. This is with hair. Now I told you earlier that there is a giant forehead. We weren't kidding. His forehead is very, very, very large. So while you do see hair on the side, and this might help you to see it a little bit more. So the hair is here on the side, but you do not see it towards the top. So do not add any hair at the main top of Frankenstein's head. You just want it on the sides, moving up towards the top of the head, and then down on each side like that, okay? Now I'm going to pull some green in here, more blue. The blue is almost just to add sort of like a little bit of a cool color, not in terms of, hey, that's really cool, but in terms of, you know, warm and hot. If you know anything about a color wheel and color wheels, how they work, when you add a cool color with a warm color, you get more of a soothing effect to it. So it's not as hard as adding black on white or a very dark color to a very light color. You have this very nice kind of flow that occurs. And we want to try to capture that the best, as much as we can. I'm going back in, like I said, adding to it. So I'm adding more color now to around the eye portion. Very large forehead. We're going to go inside there, add a little bit inside the eye. Of course, the nose has shadow too, coming down off of the nose. So we want to capture that on each side. So what I said earlier about not seeing much of the bridge, that's what I meant. You don't see a lot of this part right here. You see more of the shape based on what the shadow is telling you. And you can see now this could take forever. We could keep adding to this and adding to this and adding to this, building it up gradually until we have a very detailed character. But we want to kind of speed up a little bit so that we can include everything. And this is a pretty thick brush here. We're working with a pretty wide brush, I mean. And sometimes when you want to try to get detail in, it's hard to do that based on the thickness of your brush. So be careful with that whenever you're working at home. If you need to get in and put some detail, like very thin detail inside the eye there, you want to be careful, because once you start actually using a thicker brush, of course, that will spread that pigment all over. And it's going to be hard to go back then and correct that. Okay, so we're just going to keep adding more to it. Try to keep within the time frame of the show here, but I do want to see this build up gradually. I think it helps students to see that, because sometimes when you see a painting, you ask yourself, well, how did that go from just being a white canvas or white paper to this very detailed drawing? It doesn't happen fast. It's a gradual process. And it happens with taking your time, really, and going back and adding to it and continuing to do that process over and over and over and over again. And that's what we're trying to do here. Now I'm using green. I'm using a little bit lighter green now inside the face. You can see how this is starting to kind of appear to be more green than blue. I didn't use a whole lot of blue starting out. It was more of just kind of a toner. So you may not see that kind of appear yet until a bit later. All right, what I'm going to do is you're going to see me speed through a portion of this. So the show is actually going to speed up, but you're going to continue this process with me of building this pigment up gradually. So as you see me paint, you'll see the areas in which you need to also build that pigment up slowly too. So let's go ahead now and speed through a little bit of this watercolor so we can get to the end and include the inking part, which is my favorite. Everybody, so we've jumped in, we have tackled this head on for Halloween. I think we've pulled out something that does look like Frankenstein, I would say. So I'm pretty pleased with it. Now, watercolor and ink work great together. You can allow the watercolor to stay a little wet and then ink, and then go back and watercolor again like I've done here, and get cool effects with shading that way. So you pull color where you can find it sometimes. Every artist is different in how they approach things, but I hope you've had fun drawing Frankenstein and painting Frankenstein today. And if you have, I'd love to see it, so send it to me. We'll share it here on the show at eplingillustrations@gmail.com, and we'll be sure and let everyone see your amazing work here on the next episode. So fall is here. We're transitioning now into the latter part of the year. It's cooler weather. That's my favorite time of year personally. And so I hope you at home are also looking forward to fall and all the beautiful colors that we see across our landscape here in the mountains in eastern Kentucky. So for Pike TV, I'm Christopher Epling. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. You're the reason the show is here. It's not about me. It's not about what I can do. It's about us drawing together and having fun and learning. That's every bit of what the show is about. So thanks again for tuning in. Be sure to go to Pike TV 99 on YouTube. You can see all past episodes, including a really cool playlist of what all is available on Pike TV. And be sure also to remember any questions that you might have. Send those in to me too. We'll be sure to address whatever topic you want to address, subject matter, medium, doesn't matter. So we'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Christopher Epling for Pike TV, and keep drawing.